Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy channel, and in this video, we're going to go over my starts of the week for week 5 of the 2022 fantasy football season. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into it. All right, we're going to start with the quarterback position. We're going to start with Tom Brady, quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, he's the GOAT, but he started the year kind of slow. He was missing some weapons. He had a game against the Saints where he always struggles, but in week 4, he had Mike Evans, he got Chris Godwin back, and in a high-scoring affair, he was able to put up a nice fantasy game, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, 25.4 points in whatever format Fantasy Pros uses here. And in week 5, it's looking like Chris Godwin is going to be able to play still. He's going to have Mike Evans, and this is a dream matchup for Tom Brady. The Atlanta Falcons defense is dreadful, and he has historically dominated the Falcons while with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So long story short, you might have kind of been thinking that he's washed because of his age, but no, there were some reasons to attribute to his slow start. And in week 5, I think he is going to go nuclear in your fantasy lineup. Next up, we got Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's had a pretty solid fantasy season. Now in week 5, he gets the Baltimore Ravens. You think of the Baltimore Ravens and you might think, oh, that's a great defense. This is not the Ray Lewis defense anymore, ladies and gentlemen. This is a matchup that Joe Burrow should be able to exploit. He's got Jamar Chase, he's got T. Higgins, and he's got his own abilities. And he's a very, very strong quarterback 1 play in week 5. I'm going to go with a tandem at the running back position. And then when we get to wide receivers, I have another tandem, okay? So to start off, I'm going to start with the running back tandem, the duo in New England, with Damien Harris and Rhamondre Stevenson. So Damien Harris, he's seeing some solid volume on the ground, and he has been good for fantasy here in half PPR. You've been happy with his production pretty much over like every week the last 3 weeks. Now in week 5, he gets a great matchup with the Detroit Lions at home. The Lions' run defense is awful, and we just saw Rashad Penny absolutely dominate them on the ground. So I think he should be able to succeed there. And then for Rhamondre Stevenson, it's the same type of thing. This is a nice 1-2 punch for the Patriots with the Lions coming to town. He should see some solid rushing volume. He's been seeing a few targets, 5 each of the last 2 games. So against the Lions, a team that can put up points, I don't necessarily think this will be a blowout. So I think it should be a somewhat competitive game where the Patriots will, be able to run the ball and also throw some passes to the running backs if needed. So I think that both of these guys are great plays. One might be a lot better than the other. It's kind of a coin flip on who's going to be better. But I think you can start both of them this week against the Lions. Next up at the running back position, we're going with James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming off the Achilles, there was some reason to doubt if he could return to form, but he has looked great this season. Week 1, we weren't sure how he would look. I'm pretty sure most people didn't start him coming off the Achilles. He put up almost 20 points in half PPR. The next week against the Colts, it's the Colts. It's a bad matchup. He actually didn't have the most efficient game for fantasy, but he did rip off a pretty long run in that game, and it was good. And then week 3 against the Chargers, he had another good game, 17 for 100 on the ground and a touchdown, 19.1 points. So funny enough, I have a pretty deep dynasty team where I didn't start him any of the first 3 weeks. I put him in the lineup for week 4 over Miles Sanders in the same game. Miles Sanders went crazy. James Robinson in a bad game script, didn't see a lot of work on the ground, no targets. But in week 5, I think he'll be more like he was before that Eagles game. I expect the Jaguars to be able to win this pretty easily. At the very least, I don't think the Texans are going to be blowing out the Jaguars. So James Robinson should be in a good game script where he can see more work on the ground. And he's shown that he is he's coming back from this Achilles pretty strong, which is very rare for a running back. It's almost never been done, but the tide is kind of turning in favor of the running back here lately with some of these guys coming back. Before Sterling Shepard got injured again, he made some plays coming off an Achilles. And in week 5, the Houston Texans, that is a great matchup. They cannot defend the ground game at all. So talent, game script, matchup. I like James Robinson in week 5. Now we're going to move on to that wide receiver tandem I talked about. I said I like Tom Brady as a start for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Who's he going to throw the ball to? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is someone you probably start each and every week regardless. But in week 5, I really, really like his chances of putting up a big game for the same reasons as Tom Brady. Good matchup. He's a talented player. And I think if Tom Brady is going to have a good game, he's going to be looking towards Mike Evans, and I do like his odds of getting in the end zone. And even if he doesn't, I think he's still a safe play. Should see some healthy targets, receptions, and yardage. And then Chris Godwin, week 4, you might have not put him in the lineup because it was a primetime game. You didn't know if he was going to play, so you probably started someone earlier in the day. And even if you were confident he was going to play, we didn't know how much he was going to play coming off the hamstring. What was it? A hamstring injury, I believe. So he was coming off the ACL, then he hurt his hamstring, missed a couple games, came back, saw 10 targets. Didn't do a ton with it, but I like seeing the targets. That shows me that he, is back. He's ready to be on the field and get work. So in week 5 against the Atlanta Falcons, like I said, it's a good matchup. The Buccaneers have dominated them in recent history. So I like both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans as starts for week 5. And my dynasty team, I've been having to start DJ Moore, for example. So now that Chris Godwin is back and ready to go, I am putting him in that lineup and starting him with confidence. And we actually do have a second duo, a second wide receiver tandem for my starts of the week at the position. We're going to go with the Bengals' top 2 receivers, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is someone you're probably starting every week. Same with T. Higgins, but I made Joe Burrow a start of the week. And I'm just going to talk about his targets here pretty quick. Depending on your receiver core, maybe Higgins is someone that's kind of on the fence. I would start him with confidence against the Baltimore Ravens. He's been great for fantasy pretty much all season other than week 1. Week 5, against the Baltimore Ravens, like I said, that's not a defense that you necessarily have to be scared of like you were, years ago when they were that dominant defense. They can definitely give up some points. And then Jamar Chase, I'm going to talk about him too, just because he had a good week 1. It's been a little slower the last 3 weeks, but I think he has a chance to get on track in week 5 against Baltimore. And with a guy like Jamar Chase, you're probably starting, but this is a player that you have to put him in your lineup every week, no matter what, because he can put up 30 fantasy points. Even if, he has a down game here and there, like 8, 9 points. You still have to stick with him. Don't just overreact to a down last few games. He should be good. Each and every week he has that ability to win you a week. Plus, if this is a down week for your receiver, that's not bad. Every wide receiver, for the most part, unless your name is Cooper Kupp or prime Antonio Brown, you have down weeks. Okay, so stick with him. Put Higgins in the lineup if you have him, and I'm expecting good things this week. And we're going to go with Chris Olave, a wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. He is someone that I considered talking about in week 4, but without Jameis Winston starting at quarterback and Andy Dalton taking his place against my Minnesota Vikings, I wasn't sure how his targets would look. Just with a quarterback change, you never really know what's going to happen. But Olave saw 7 targets, caught 4 of them for 67 and a touchdown. He has been great for fantasy. The rookie has come out of the gate really strong. He's seeing a lot of targets. And in week 5 against Seattle, that is a great matchup. Michael Thomas, a fellow wide receiver for the Saints, I believe is listed as out, as well as Jameis Winston. He was either listed as doubtful or out. So if Andy Dalton is playing in week 5, is starting, we saw last week he was able to get the ball to Olave. Granted, if they didn't connect on that touchdown, it might not have been the best week, but sort of as like, someone you could put in your flex or your wide receiver 2 or 3 spot. I think this is a good play. He should be a safe play just with his targets and the matchup. And you've seen, guys, he has big playability. He can make a lot of big plays. So in week 5, in a good matchup against Seattle, coming off that game where there was that back and forth between the Lions where no one could stop anyone, I'm hoping that we can have a little bit of a high-scoring affair here. And even if not, I think Olave will still be good for fantasy, but I would start him with confidence in week 5. And my tight end start of the week is Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like his matchup against the Cardinals. You're probably starting him anyways, but for example, I'm in a dynasty league, right? I recently traded for Kyle Pitts, and I have Dallas Goedert. I know Kyle Pitts isn't playing, but if he was, I had a decision to make right there. And I probably would have gone with Dallas Goedert over Pitts if that decision did have to be made, just because he's been good for fantasy this season. He's getting a decent amount of targets, and he's doing a lot with them. And it's a great matchup, actually, against the Cardinals. Especially if it's a competitive game and the Cardinals are able to keep up. He can put up yardage. He can get in the end zone. And in week 5, I would feel pretty good rolling with him in fantasy. Now we're going to do our recap of my week 4 calls, because it's important to look back and see what went well and what didn't go well. So, I mean, you got to be kidding me, right? I said I liked Marcus Mariota as a start. The dude completed 7 passes, was a complete bust. Listen, if you'd have told me they would have barely thrown the ball, I mean, he had been solid for fantasy, but for whatever reason, as soon as I make him a start of the week, just nothing. He couldn't do anything. And the crazy part, you can believe me or not, I literally was thinking maybe I should also include Geno Smith as a start of the week. And I'm like, nah, no one's going to start Geno. I had to start him in a league because I've been without Dak in a super flex league. So I had Kirk Cousins. I've been looking for someone. I found Geno off the waiver wire. It was a good matchup with the Lions. The dude went off. He's actually been great for fantasy so far this year. So in hindsight, I wish I would have brought up Geno. And I also was going to bring Metcalf, who you'll see later. I didn't bring up, who had a great game. So I had a couple, some of the guys that I ended up talking about didn't do so well, but I wish I would have brought up Geno and Metcalf. But at running back, I recommended starting Khalil Herbert. He wasn't as great as I was hoping, but he did have 10.6 points. He saw the volume. So it was a good process of making him a start with David Montgomery out. He was definitely okay for fantasy. And then Jamaal Williams. He was my other start of the week at running back with no DeAndre Swift. And the dude went off. This was a great call by the fantasy football prodigy himself in the flesh. 19 for 108, 2 touchdowns. He was running back 5.5 PPR, over 20 points. I mean, my goodness. What a call. What a call. You get some right, you get some wrong. But ladies and gentlemen, we got that one about as right as can be. I also said I liked Mike Williams. He just put up a cool 7 for 120. He was almost a wide receiver 1 with no touchdown. 15.5 points in half PPR. I mean, what are we talking about? And then Gabe Davis. I said if the reports are that he's looking healthy, he might be a good start. No one really knew what was going on. I'm not sure if his lack of production lately is due to his injury or just a lack of talent. Can I find this guy? I mean, where's Gabe Davis here? There. Nope, that's Corey Davis. Gabe Davis. Wide receiver 86, 1.8 points. He caught 1 for 13. Yeah, that was a bad call. I really wish I would have gone with DK Metcalf. The only reason I didn't bring up Metcalf was because the Lions had a pretty solid cornerback. I forget his name, but I thought maybe he would kind of lock Metcalf up, but that did not happen at all. And then at tight end, we had David Njoku as my start of the week against Atlanta. He actually had a pretty solid week. I would roll with him if you picked him up off the waiver wire. I know he had 7.2 points. It's not like super flashy, especially coming off a week where he had a sort of a week winning type of performance, but he saw 7 targets. He was 5 for 73. He had a long of 25. I believe he did have a fumble in this game though, so that's -2 right there. And he did lose 6 rushing yards. So if you add the rushing yards and remove the fumble, which he's not going to fumble most weeks, he's looking at 10 points, healthy targets, 5 receptions. And he has big playability. That's rare at the tight end position. So I think that was a decent call. And going forward, I do like Njoku as someone you can probably play, especially in the right matchup. I hope we get all our calls right. I'm very confident with my calls, with my starts of the week for week 5. Obviously, fantasy, I feel like it's been crazy this year. So we're still trying to figure out like what's what with all these players. But I think I'm hoping week 5 we get a lot of our starts right, at least more so, more right than wrong. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps a bunch. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.